Hello and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Gugulethu, Cele. Now, so often as adults, we always try to prepare our children for their education, for their savings future, and at times, maybe you might even want to look at retirement, given the wonderful opportunities that are found with compound interests and the innovative product solutions that are available in the South African market at the moment. But to tell us more about this as to how you can put your child in a position where they are able to save for themselves or you begin saving on their behalf, maybe even for their retirement, I'm joined in studio by Preenay Sathu, who's the channel head at FNB Financial Advisory. Good to have you with us today, Preenay, and thank you so much for making time.
Hi, Gugu. Thank you.
Fantastic. If we do take a look at the landscape, one knows that it's very difficult for consumers of any shape or form to really save efficiently, given the fact that there's low savings rate in South Africa, rising interest rates, rising inflation. So our pockets are really under pressure. I'm not a mother yet, but I'm an aunt to many. If I do want to start saving for my nieces and nephews, or even little juniors who I don't know when they'll come, what is the appropriate strategy that one needs to implement at the moment?
Well, there's a variety of strategies available, a variety of solutions available. However, I think one's got to look at the individual circumstances at hand, and that starts from what's your time horizon, what is your risk profile, what's the goal ultimately as well. So do you want to set a platform for your child to retire 45 years from now, 60 years from now?
Wow.
And all of that fundamentally impacts the underlying strategy that one puts in place from an investment perspective. And that's looking at your building blocks from an asset allocation perspective, and do we go and focus on a multi-asset strategy in line with a targeted return over a specified period of time.
Mm-hmm. Coming back, so go ahead there, I interrupted for a moment.
No, so you know, all of that coupled with various solutions, so you could almost go into discretionary investment solutions like unit trusts. With that, obviously, at a certain point, you as the contributing parent would have to transfer into your child's name. The implication there is there may be a CGT effect on the contributing parent's taxable income. But ultimately, you could transfer it into the child's name, and then the child could contribute towards an RA going forward. There's tax-free savings accounts, great vehicles in South Africa.
True.
Annual limit of 30,000 rands in terms of contributions, or a lifetime limit of 500,000 rands. And again, you could open that up in your individual name or in your child's name and contribute towards it. I think parents do need to just take cognizance of the fact that should you contribute on behalf of your child, effectively what will happen is you'd be utilizing a portion of your child's lifetime contribution limit.
And that's R500,000 rand, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
R500,000 rand at this point in time. Quite importantly to note that although we are actually utilizing a portion of the lifetime contribution limit for your children, you're actually setting up a solid platform in terms of their savings and their financial well-being going forward. I mean, can you imagine a child at the age of 18 or 20 having a R500,000 rands retirement annuity in place, and the compound growth that one could have going forward on that platform built by the parents? So effectively, if you think of it, in South Africa, we tend to almost contribute towards retirement savings vehicles or retirement annuities, probably on average about 25 to 30 years. You take that and you compound it by a further 20 years, and it's a massive difference towards retirement savings. So we could fundamentally change a lot of lives going forward, whether it's children, nieces, nephews, or godchildren.
Exactly. So there is a strong opportunity here, as you mentioned. And I wish I had a retirement savings that started at 18, but we're obviously still working on that. But I want to come back to some of the themes that we can introduce these children to. And I know that it works by different age groups, because there's a vast difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, even though you'd want them to be involved. Are there means and ways, by making use of some of the platforms that you have, for example, at FNB, to start introducing children to some of these themes and concepts like equities, what the stock market is, savings account, compound interest? Would that be a viable option at all?
Absolutely. So I think, you know, in terms of international research done, there's proven facts that if you start introducing your children at a certain age to certain concepts, it starts to almost instill in them, and they start to identify with it going forward. So for example, at the age of 5, you could introduce your child to savings, goals, inflation, those concepts. and they almost identify with it immediately, and over time they build up solid knowledge and intuition in terms of understanding the principles that back each one of them up. And it lays a solid foundation again for them to help understand what does financial well-being mean and how I can actually contribute towards enhancing my own financial future.
And I take it the older they get, then you can bring on some of the more complex situations.
Absolutely. So you could, at the age, I think, of 15 or 16, start introducing the concepts of asset allocation strategies, equities, stocks, shares, property, bonds, etc. And again, all of this ties into the earlier building blocks from savings, goals, etc. And we build a solid platform from which they can gain huge insight in terms of enhancing their own financial well-being.
To sidestep for a moment, on this show we're strong advocates of seeking professional advice from individuals like yourselves who are certified financial planners. At what point in your child's upbringing would it be suitable to introduce them to a CFP, perhaps if it is the family financial advisor?
Look, we've always encouraged family financial planning, and that's including both spouses in a meeting with a financial planner, and then almost introduce your children to those meetings as soon as possible to give them a sense of what it actually means, what it actually encompasses, and how it can actually add value. So when they go through the process, they almost know what to expect and what to give as well from a personal perspective in terms of achieving one's goals.
Exactly. Coming back to what I might have mentioned at the top of the show, given the rising cost of living and pressures on consumers' pockets, what is the starting range that we can look at here? Or does it again depend on the investor's pocket?
Look, it depends on a number of factors. So firstly, what can one afford? 50 rands, 100 rands a month. A lot of service providers will generally start at about 250 rands per month in terms of savings minimum criteria. But again, it depends on the service provider and it depends on the individual itself. So, you know, if you can't afford 250 rands, you could probably go into a cash investment and earn returns in line with CPI or a little bit less. To
sidestep again, at the top of the show, you did mention that perhaps you need to look at investing in your child's name or even in your name, but that would obviously impact on some of the thresholds when it comes to maybe tax-free savings accounts. What is the most advisable option? If you're going to start a savings account for a 5-year-old, would you want to put it in the child's name or yourself as the parent?
Look, again, it's individual circumstances. So, you know, if you want to gain maximum growth, and I assume that one would over a longer period of time, especially if your child's still a minor, you'd want to have exposure to high-risk assets, which means you need to be invested in vehicles that allow for one to have exposure to such assets. So tax-free savings, great opportunity. Again, whether it's invested in the child's name or the parent's name is up to the individual at that point. I think although we're probably using a portion of the lifetime contribution limit for a child, we're actually setting up a solid foundation for them in terms of saving. So for me, it's almost a no-brainer. In terms of contributing towards a retirement annuity in a child's name, again, the only disadvantage is probably you're not going to gain the full tax benefit as the contributing parent because you're not the legal owner of the contract. But again, solid platform for the child to build on once they start working. So again, I would strongly advise that, you know, you consult a financial planner and ascertain which one works for you.
Exactly. Looking at all the various options available.
Absolutely.
Well, we've certainly said quite a bit. Let's get a quick refresher on tonight's conversation, not only looking after our own retirement, but maybe even that of our children. Preenay, if we take away anything from tonight's conversation, what are the 5 fundamentals that you believe we shouldn't miss out on?
Well, you know, it's never too late to seek financial advice, professional advice. So do so if you haven't already. Build a relationship with a financial planner, and it almost needs to encompass a lifetime journey that you need to walk on with a financial planner. So, you know, it's the same principle when you see a GP. You build a lifetime relationship because that person has history, etc., of your family and yourself, and the same should be applying to your finances. Start early. So you could never start too early, and I think, you know, compound growth speaks for itself.
True.
Instill savings, the savings discipline and culture in your children. And lastly, I think quite importantly is you need to basically, or we as South Africans need to own change in this country from a savings perspective. So if you look at stats currently, gross domestic savings as a percentage of GDP is 15.4%. Household savings is almost negative. If you compare ourselves to someone like China,
Sure.
you know, who actually have an average household income lower than South Africa, you know, their gross domestic savings is 50%. So fundamentally, we're doing something wrong as South Africans, and we need to own and change that philosophy to fundamentally change future generations and create legacies for our children.
Thank you so much. You've left it on a very powerful note, creating legacies not only for our children but ourselves from a financial point of view. Thanks once more to my guest this evening, Preenay Sathu, who's a channel head at FNB Financial Advisory. Well, you two can share your thoughts on how your plan is working out, not only saving for your retirement but that of your children too. And you can send all of your feedback to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410 or tweet myself @Gugulethu. Until next time though, we wish you a wonderful evening.